Is the Middle Eastern region safer? Are our friends and allies...
But has this prevented it?
I would argue that we are starting major road and ground that other presidents have not. He tried diplomacy. Diplomacy wasn't working. And so now...
He didn't try diplomacy that hard.
He did. He absolutely did.
This whole started with bombs dropping this past summer, where he, again, came out and promised us that all of this was obliterated. For the people who believed him, now they must feel like fools, because if it was obliterated, what's the need to do it again? And yet here we are. And so this administration has no credibility. And frankly, if the deal that we have in place right now continues to be the one in place, then Iran is going to make enough money from vessels passing through the Strait of Hormuz that they're going to have no problem rebuilding their military.
Brian Tyler Cohen goes head-to-head with Katie Zachariah on CNN's The Story as pressure builds over the true effects of the Iran conflict, increasing strain on the economy, and the ongoing question of whether the United States is any safer. And while Katie Zachariah works to support the administration's position, Brian Tyler Cohen firmly challenges her, raising concerns about the actual results, the growing costs, and the noticeable gap between what was promised and what people are seeing now, as the conversation quickly turns intense, with both sides addressing broken expectations, continued threats, and the wider impact of a strategy that many say has failed to deliver the stability it once guaranteed. So let's take a closer look at how Brian Tyler Cohen responds to Katie Zachariah on CNN's The Story.
Was the war a good thing? Was it worth it? Are we safer now than we were at the beginning?
I think any way you cut this, internationally and domestically, this has been an unmitigated disaster. If you look at this from an international perspective, the whole point of this was supposed to be regime change. Well, we've gone from Khomeini to Khomeini, and so I don't think that we've really accomplished that goal of regime change. Also, in terms of the decimated military of the Iranians, well, if they're charging this toll now for ships and vessels to get through the Strait of Hormuz, they're going to be able to rebuild their military fivefold in terms of the amount of money that they're bringing in. When you look at what's happening right here at home, we've had at least 13 service members who've died, 400 who've been wounded. This has cost tens of billions of dollars that should have gone to domestic priorities. The cost of gas is surging. And so any way you cut this, abroad and at home, unmitigated disaster.
Katie?
Well, I totally disagree with my friend Brian. I think we are much safer than we were before. And the reason why is because, let's backtrack. President Trump had Iran sanctioned in 2018. And Joe Biden came in and he gave sanction waivers on Iran. And then President Trump also had Russia and Nord Stream 2 sanctioned. Joe Biden came in and made waivers on these things. And in my opinion, the stated goal was not for regime change. The stated goal was to make sure that Iran does not have nuclear capabilities. That has been over and overstated. It was pretty clear that they didn't want regime change. And
well, pretty clear is I mean, we've heard a lot of different things out of the administration from different people at different times.
From the outset was, we want to make sure Iran does not have a nuclear weapon or uranium enrichment. And look, China gets 80%, 90% of Iran oil is purchased by China. And having lived in China, I see that this is not just about Iran. This is about a multifaceted approach to ensuring that China can no longer use Iran as their oil base. And honestly, with what's happened with Russia and China and Iran, to make a big deal, I think the president is actually, with this deal on the table right now, is organizing what could be lasting peace instead of this recreation of more and more problems in the Middle East.
We have heard from the only plan that's been released right now, which is this 10-point plan released from Iran, which is that nuclear enrichment was still going to be allowed. So we have nothing to refute it from the American side. So as far as we know, there's going to be Americans paying for all of the damage that's been done. We're going to have continued uranium enrichment in Iran, and they're going to be able to charge tolls. So we really have gained nothing out of this. And in terms of obliterating Iran's military, I mean, we heard the exact same thing in June. So it's the same story being peddled by this administration that's constantly moving the goalposts, constantly obfuscating what's actually happening. Americans have no clue what's going on. We have heard that the goal of this thing was regime change. And then when that seemed to be a farce, because we've gone from the father to the son, who's reportedly more hardline than his dad was, the administration, if he's alive, the administration had to pivot and figure out some new excuse that would justify having gone through this whole debacle.
At the beginning, what becomes clear is how far the current situation is from what real success should look like in a conflict like this. Because in today's kind of warfare, success is not just about striking targets, but about removing threats for the long run. And if a country can still earn money, rebuild its strength, and hold on to its influence, then the main issue has not truly been fixed. And we have seen similar situations before in the Middle East, where quick military wins did not lead to lasting stability, and in some cases even made hardline groups stronger instead of weaker. And another major factor here is the economic impact, both worldwide and at home, since the Strait of Hormuz is one of the most important energy routes in the world, and any disturbance there quickly affects oil prices, shipping costs, and global markets. And that effect does not stay limited to that region because it reaches everyday people through higher fuel prices and rising inflation. And on top of that, long-running conflicts usually bring huge financial costs that can reach tens or even hundreds of billions, which could have been used for domestic needs like infrastructure, healthcare, or support for veterans. And this trade-off is something more people are starting to notice. And beyond that, there is also the problem of shifting goals, which creates confusion and weakens trust. Because when objectives keep changing from one reason to another, like regime change, deterrence, or containment, it becomes harder to measure progress or clearly define success. And in past conflicts, this kind of inconsistency has made it more difficult to keep public support and strong international cooperation. And without a clear and steady end goal, even strong military actions can start to feel unfocused, leaving both the public and allies uncertain about what the final outcome is supposed to be.
I mean, because we do not know in terms of Iran's nuclear capability, and it's possible that there will be continue to enrich. And we've spent tens of billions of dollars. Hundreds of people have died. I mean, what is the actual end result of what we've gotten out of this?
I think I'm going to reverse the question and say, is the world safer if Iran has a nuclear weapon? Is the Middle Eastern region safer? Are our friends and allies...
But has this prevented it?
I would argue that we are starting major road and ground that other presidents have not. He tried diplomacy wasn't working. And so now...
He didn't try diplomacy that hard.
He did. He absolutely did.
This whole started with bombs dropping this past summer, where he, again, came out and promised us that all of this was obliterated. For the people who believed him, now they must feel like fools, because if it was obliterated, what's the need to do it again? And yet here we are. And so this administration has no credibility. And frankly, if the deal that we have in place right now continues to be the one in place, then Iran is going to make enough money from vessels passing through the Strait of Hormuz that they're going to have no problem rebuilding their military.
Is the world safer if Iran has a nuclear weapon?
I don't have any confidence that this has prevented them from being able to have a nuclear weapon.
So stand by and let a nuclear weapon be developed, and let's see what happens, or do something about it. What is the solution? Diplomacy hasn't been working. So do we allow Iran? That's the question. Do we allow Iran to develop a nuclear weapon? Is that in the best interest of the world, the safety and security of us, the safety and security of the Middle Eastern region, and many of our friends and allies, even in Europe?
I don't know if anybody is saying that it's better to have Iran have a nuclear weapon. I think the question is, what is the best way of preventing that, and what's the best strategy going forward? But Brian, to her point, what if we do come to a deal, that these negotiations are successful? What if all of this springs an actual deal between Israel and Lebanon, and there maybe is some peace there? What if we maybe have a better relationship with Iran, and it's not as able to attack all of our allies with proxies, and their military has been decimated a little bit? I mean, isn't there some value in that?
Anytime there is actual lasting peace, I'm a proponent of that. My contention here is that I have no confidence that this administration is able to do that, or even showing that they're capable of doing that. Because, again, in the deal that we've seen thus far, Iran looks like it's in a stronger position than it was just a couple of months ago.
It's interesting also in terms of strength. President Trump's poll numbers not great on this. And we've seen a divide in the MAGA base, which you know so well, talking to these folks every day. There are some people who are against this, and there are plenty in the MAGA base who are very supportive of him as well.
At the center of this debate, what stands out most is the gap between the aim of stopping nuclear development and the methods being used to reach it. Because history shows that while military strikes can slow nuclear programs down, they almost never remove them completely. And in many cases, they push those efforts further underground, where they become harder to monitor and verify. And intelligence findings over the years have repeatedly shown that without steady diplomacy, inspections, and international oversight, keeping things under control in the long term actually becomes more difficult instead of easier for global security. And another key part of this discussion is the strategic and economic advantage that often gets ignored, since the Strait of Hormuz is one of the most important shipping routes in the world, with around 20% of the global oil supply moving through it every day. And when a country has influence over such a critical point, it can earn revenue and apply pressure that goes far beyond direct military action. And this kind of leverage can make up for losses on the battlefield and even improve long-term positioning, especially when global markets react with higher prices and uncertainty. And just as important is the issue of credibility and consistency in shaping outcomes, because when messaging shifts from claims of full success to ongoing operations, it creates confusion not only for the public, but also for allies who rely on clear coordination. And in past conflicts, mixed communication has weakened alliances and made it harder to reach lasting results. And without clear goals and measurable benchmarks, it becomes much harder to judge progress and much easier for the situation to drag on without a clear or stable ending.
But he posted on Truth Social about some well-known Republican commentators who have been against this war. Let's put this up on the screen. I know why Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, and Alex Jones have all been fighting me for years, especially by the fact they think it's wonderful for Iran, the #1 state sponsor, to have a nuclear weapon, because they have one thing in common: low IQs. They know it, their families know it, and everybody knows it too. What's your reaction to that and your feel in terms of what's going on in the MAGA base?
Well, I'm going to lead with I'm a free speech absolutist. So President Trump can say this, and the people that he's speaking about can say this. And I will also speak to the fact that I've been very frustrated with the factions in the Republican Party. Generally, Republicans have shown a long history of not being able to win. We cannot even right now get the Save America Act passed in the Republican Senate and Republican House. So it went through the House, and we can't get it passed in the Senate. So to see all of these...
You need 60 votes in the Senate, so you need to get rid of the filibuster.
We need to get rid of the filibuster.
Thing.
It's a whole other thing. But to speak to this, that I am also happy to see Alex Jones get called out in that post. He's been a very difficult person after going bankrupt, kissing the president, and really asking him for favors, and then kind of turning around and attacking him. However, the free speech aspect of this, they are welcome to talk about. I have a bigger problem at the factions in the Republican Party and the inability for anyone to get anything done, everyone fighting online about everything. And so that is really more my position. Is I would like to see all of these people come to the table and at least be united on trying to get something done for the American people, which would be voter ID.
Do you agree with the president that Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens are all low IQ people?
I'm not going to speak to their IQs or he has his personal opinion about them.
Yeah. What do you think is going on here?
I think it's pretty telling that Donald Trump goes after Candace Owens, Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, and Megyn Kelly for daring to hold the president to the same standard that he campaigned on. He promised that he was going to be a president that didn't engage in foreign adventurism. That's exactly what he's doing right now. He promised that he wouldn't be a president that would see gas prices rise. We're seeing these gas prices surge to levels that we haven't seen in years and years and years. He promised he would be a president that would focus on America first. And now he is moving billions and billions and billions of dollars from domestic priorities over to the Middle East so that he can drop bombs. And then on top of all of that, he thinks that he has a leg to stand on by attacking his own former allies. It's not like these people are crunching raunchy liberals. These are the most MAGA people that you could possibly find, and yet he attacks them because they dare try hold him to the same standard that he set for himself.
You simplify this that he's just raising gas prices and dropping bombs. And
That's exactly what he's doing.
What stands out here is not only the tone, but the way the ground is shifting inside the Republican coalition, because compared to just a few months ago, the divisions have become more visible. And now several well-known conservative voices are openly questioning foreign policy decisions that resemble the kind of intervention voters had previously pushed against. And that change matters, because when people within the group start sounding more doubtful than supportive, it shows a coalition that is less united and more reactive than it appears. And at the same time, polling trends do not really support the idea of strength, since when a president's approval drops specifically on issues like war and economic pressure, it signals a real concern rather than random movement. And rising energy costs, even when driven by global factors, still affect everyday voters, who often hold leadership responsible. And when billions are being spent overseas, it creates a sense that priorities are shifting away from daily concerns, which is the kind of gap that has historically weakened even strong and loyal voter bases. And the clearest sign of all is the internal conflict itself, because when figures like Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, and Candace Owens are criticized from within their own side, it shows that the issue goes beyond personal attacks and reflects a movement struggling to stay consistent with its own promises. And voters who expected less involvement abroad and more focus at home are now watching that shift happen in real time. And that kind of pressure does not fade, but builds over time, which is why the argument supporting this direction feels weaker now than it did months ago, as doubt continues to grow, even among those who were once firmly supportive.